Good afternoon. We are here presenting Saúl de los Santos, Berta Vallejo, and Victor Cabral, a work in progress that we are writing called Supply Chain Resilience and Multinational Enterprises in the Global South. This is a case study of an international first-tier supplier that is located in a country in the South, and due to confidentiality, we are going to try to keep anonymous the name of the company. So I will start with the presentation, and then Victor Cabral will continue, and Saúl de los Santos will present our reflections. We are not calling them conclusions because this is still a work in progress. The impact of COVID-19 in the automobile industry has affected the industry worldwide in a way that has not been seen since the Great Recession. The first week exposed already how the supply chain was induced to shocks that caused production interruptions at all supplying levels. And although the large multinationals, the OEMs, have instant online visibility into their first-tier suppliers, with COVID-19 and the unknown length of the shock, this vision was blurred. And as the chain was going to the lower levels, second-tier suppliers, third-tier suppliers, or what is called also the fourth-tier suppliers, this vision was even more blurred. So the second and third-tier suppliers were the most affected, or are the most affected by the COVID-19 disruption in the supply chain. And since the late 20s, a lot of studies have come on supply chain resilience and on risk management. And these two elements of the literature have taken much more relevance in the latest months. We have studies that analyze supply chain resilience in the financial crisis of 2008, on the volcano eruptions in 2013, 2014, or even on the effects of terrorism on this. But COVID had the characteristic that we don't know, even now, the length of these lockdowns, or the length of these measurements, and the length of the event has been too long. So this has brought combined challenges for which firms' mitigation strategies seems to be insufficient. Our study aims to identify the main challenges and strategies that multinational firms adopt to face supply chain disruptions under COVID-19. We use the case study of a company that presents an overview of its upcoming supply shortage and related to supply chain resilience and the digitalization literature. The research presents a case of a multinational that is a first-tier supplier that is hosted in the Global South. We identify important factors that have accelerated the upcoming shortage of automotive components and raw materials, with the consequent closedowns of factories and production facilities all around the world. The first point is that concentration of automobile suppliers in China. And then we have the limited capacity of the international logistics system to operate under the ongoing restrictions. And third, the unexpected long duration of the pandemic. Fourth, we have increasing uncertainty at the macro level. The logistic routes became unreliable and expensive. And the industry expects even more upcoming global shortage of materials, mainly electronics, plastics, and metal components. Our case study explores the strategies adopted to overcome this type of situation and the implications in the ongoing effort for digitalization of the auto supply chain. The role of China. Since the late 80s, China has increased its participation and relevance in the auto supply chain, addressing the local and the international market. Nowadays, China is the largest automotive producer since 2009, with about 30% of the worldwide production being done in China. So it's not surprising that most companies have established their production facilities in China during the last 10 years. So China is the hub and the home of key links to the sector global supply chain, particularly in electronics, brakes, and steering components and wheels. The main production centers are located in Hubei, the place where the pandemic started. This province hosts about 36 automakers and about 291 automotive parts suppliers. The major firms located there are and include Valeo, Dongfeng, Foxconn, Wuhan Iron, and Steel Corporation. This situation, the pandemic, the lockdown, the closing of borders, produced a stoppage in Europe. And also this closing of firms in Europe also disrupted the rest of the automotive supply chain. According to the European Automobile Manufacturing Association, the production of about 4.3 million vehicles was lost in 2020 due to factory shutdowns related to COVID-19. It is important to mention that about 40% of the automobile value comes from the electronic components and the software. And about 20% of machinery and equipment comes from control robotics and automation elements. Digital components in the automobile are rapidly increasing their participation into the composition of the new automobiles, changing the global landscape of the sector. According to Herbert Diess, the Volkswagen CEO, digitalization is expected to increase to 90% in automotive production by 2035. The key component here are the semiconductors.
Yes, has been mentioned before regarding the semiconductors issue. As you can see in this chart, and Asia is home of the 3/4 of the global chip capacity. The negative effect of the lack of semiconductors in our automotive companies range from technical shutdowns to temporary daily shutdowns. Unlike previous recessions, the limitations of semiconductor supply is the point of interruption in new technologies, affecting not only the automotive industry, but all new generation electronic products, such as smartphones, computers, and medical equipment. The worldwide pandemic of coronavirus created a need to address the restriction on the population, increasing the demand for computers, smart TVs, tablets, video games, and smartphones for work from home, educational service, and even for entertainment. According to the Semiconductors Industry Association, sales has been increasing from 2020 to 2021 in $43 billion in a growth of 8.3 in compared to 2019. Given that sales increased by 12.5% in March of 2021, the future of semiconductor demand is uncertain, largely due to the market demand and the long-term plans companies make to subsist this demand. The home office has increased the sales of laptops, desktop tablets. In the case of the automotive industry, are affected the smart devices in the new generation of cars. The capacity of the face to the adversity in the supply chain due to the lack of the semiconductor in the automotive company, which was overcome by lack of the metal in the Asian suppliers, causing a disruption in the production areas. First of all, due to the trade war between the United States of America and China, and followed by the recent COVID-19 pandemic affecting all suppliers, the logistic systems, transportation, distribution centers, and BMIs. Containment measures in different countries due to the COVID-19 have changed the way of raw materials are required, breaking the supply chain and increasing transportation costs. The replacement of semiconductor companies is not an option as a resilience mechanism to cope the shortage, as they are unique components manufactured in Asia. On the other hand, the restriction in each country where the raw materials come from changing the production scheme due to the confinement, creating a gap in the delivery time, stopping the production lines in the company. One of the most affected due to the second wave of COVID-19, and for having a delivery time of 20 weeks with the suppliers in India and Asia who are not being able to react in advance to the restrictions imposed by their governments to prevent to spread the COVID-19. The global semiconductor shortage continues as a problem that many analysts believe that will not have repercussions beyond the first quarter of 2021. The demand for semiconductor chips has been increasing in recent years due to the rise of smart devices. Moreover, in particular, the COVID-19 pandemic forced people to stay at home to study or work, increasing the demand of the electronics worldwide. This is putting more pressure in the semiconductor industry. One form of resilience to the lack of the semiconductors in the face of the high demand was to shift part of the production for the automotive sector for general use in the population affected by the pandemic. Much of the automotive industry was among the most affected due to the loss of consumer confidence and to maintain social distance, and for the industries that were forced to close. So at the time, the supply demand of semiconductors did not suffer an imbalance. After the second wave of COVID-19 and being able to counteract with the necessary sanitary measures, the industry was gradually open. This caused on a bottleneck in the supply chain by the reopening, coupled with this at the beginning of the year in February, and due to the winter storm that hit in the northeast and southeast of the United States, causing blackouts. This event cut off all the main supplier of gas and generate electricity in northern of Mexico, and affecting the automotive industry, stranding shipments to customers and raw materials inputs to the automotive industry at the border. The semiconductor sector is very specialized, and few companies produce this type of products, such as Intel, Samsung Electronics, and some automakers that has been hit by this crisis. And this could probably end at the end of 2021. Part of the resilience is to find out the solution to the crisis. This specialization causes that the supply is insufficient to meet all the demand. Although expediting is cheaper than having a contingency plan against disruptions, the company had no choice but to reduce its workforce, and even this led to a temporary shutdown of operations. In addition, the logistics system has been affected by the lack of containers for shipping components and port congestion in the United States, disrupting the global supply chain, which is why the company is seeking to restore resilience plans for the automotive sector.
Well, to make a summary of what Berta and Victor have already presented, I think the new debate that it's an ongoing topic, it's between both local and global sourcing versus concentrated or distributed value and supply chains. So this asks us to provide new insights to the governance of value chains, and of course to the role of China, not only being the receptor of investment of the automotive industry suppliers, but also being now a source of new investment to other regions. So the question is, how do we build resilience into a global supply chain for the automotive industry? It's still a question to be answered. What's the role of in-house production? Are companies going to become more vertically integrated? What are the roles of technology, of automation within that restructuring of processes and value chains? How do we build resilience into management and decision making? What's the role of proximity in the formula? Do we somehow build redundance? We have more than one supplier or multiple suppliers for one specific good. How do we build flexibility in order for companies to adapt to change and uncertainty? And of course, larger companies, multinational firms, enterprises can have a vast accessibility to resources, technical, financial resources to handle this complexity. But as Berta mentioned in the initial slides, smaller companies in tier 2 and tier 3 have a rather limited capability to access those resources and adapt. So we'll have to look into that and see what's the best model to build resilience and how the companies are adapting to these conditions of the new reality. Thanks.